Welcome back, everybody. It's BasilMillwood once more, and yeah, sorry for a long time away. To be 100% honest and frank, a lot of the reason was well, laziness, procrastination, being busy, and actually getting sick. But back I am once more. So, as before, this is the third round of the Midstream Open Chess tournament held at Midstream College um, in South Africa. The time control is 55 minutes with 5-second increment. On, well, round 3, I was on board. Let me check so we all know where we're on. I was on board 3 and I was playing as white. I'm rated 1435 at this point in the tournament, and my opponent Senzo Sibeko is rated 1268. Now I'm going to actually try and do something a bit different. So somebody at my club told me this idea, and I've heard this in Grandmaster say this and read this in some chess books as well, where it's analyze the game first without the computer and then with the computer. So that's more or less what I'm going to try and attempt today. So I'm going to go through the game, explain my thought process, as well as not just that, but also explain what I think I could have played, and if I think the moves I played was good or not in specific cases. I'm not going to be covering each move. This game was quite long. Me and my opponent both went under 5 minutes in the game. Before I forget, I should thank my fifth opponent, or my round 5 opponent, um, Kulakani. I'm not going to try to pronounce the last name. I'm just going to butcher it. I did say in the first video that I couldn't do my 5th game, and he kindly reached out via a YouTube comment and posted the game. And so thank you very much for posting it. But okay, anyways, let me get back to this game in particular. This game was, well, it was 77 moves long. So I'm not going to be covering each and every little move in depth. I'm going to quickly try and go through it, but still give my thoughts on moments that I think could be useful, but also see how I could have played better. So opening wise, I played c4, and my opponent played e6. So I thought in this position he's going to either play knight to f6 or d5 later on. There's the option to play c5 as well. c5 would lead into a symmetrical English sort of structure. Knight f6 I think is more flexible. Would probably have led into the Mikenas attack with how I play this position. So knight c3 is what I played. He could go for bishop b4, which is the it's an attempt to play the Nimzo Indian. Yes, it's an attempt to play the Nimzo Indian. It's a bit different to what's played on normally. I would probably play e4 there still, because it can still lead to the Mikenas attack. So he played knight f6 and I played e4. So the Mikenas-Carls variation or attack, as it's sometimes as it's also known as, is more or less the idea that so black could play d5, black could play bishop e4, and I would play e5 in that variation. The main line, if he played d5, is e4, d4, e takes on f6, and d takes on b3, d takes on b3. No. I think I'm mistaken. I think it's the other way around. But anyways, so he played knight c6, which I'm not sure if that's a good move or not. First glance, it develops a piece. It doesn't really fight for the center. It isn't committing to anything egregious, if you will. It is, however, saying I'm not going to play c5 at any point. So I decide to play d4 and treat it sort of like a King's Indian sort of idea. I'm taking the full center, and he's going to try and do something to it. I expected d5 here, or bishop to b4. I would have to respond to it in a very smart manner. f3 is probably the move I would have to play, because, so let's say this was played. If I don't respond to this correctly, he's going to take my knight and then take my pawn, which is hanging. I could push the pawn, which is not a bad move. So that's probably what I would have played, but he decided he's going to play d6. So first off, this is a very cagey or passive setup that he's going for, and honestly, I think it's better for white overall, because the bishops is getting blunted on both diagonals. He could go for maybe some sort of, try and go for some sort of hippo-esque structure where he fianchettos both his bishops, and that way fights for the long diagonals. But as it stands, the pawns are blocking the bishop's line of sight. So I decide I'm going to play knight f3. It's clearly just a good. It's a developing move. I'm just going to develop castle and then decide what to do after that. He decided to play bishop e7. I played bishop e2. He castled and I castled. And this move, I did not understand what the idea was behind it. So he played bishop and knight d7. Sorry, knight d7. I didn't understand what he was trying to play. So I just decide I'm going to make a move that I think isn't bad. I'm just going to stop his knight from coming to b4. Just try and do a slow move, see what he does, as well as marginally improve my position, because a3 does prepare b4. In a lot of circumstances, I could then fianchetto my bishop to b2. But this, I think, what he did is something I have to keep in mind myself for future reference, as a sort of pattern recognition, if you will. This will give me an idea if my opponent does something like this, that this might be a move he's going to play, but also an idea for me. And the whole reason he played knight to e7 was to play f5. Yes, lashing out, saying, okay, I'm not afraid, I'm going to take some space on the king side. What are you going to do? I decided, so frankly, I didn't want to push my pawn, but I also didn't want my pawn to be captured, because then I didn't think it was that grand. So I decide I'm going to take his pawn and say, okay, you've got an weak diagonal to your king, and this will allow me to potentially bring my pieces to the king's side for an attack. So I took on f5, he took back on f5 with his pawn. I just decided to play b4, taking space, and then preparing the move to play bishop b2. He put his knight back on f6, so this now looks a lot like a Dutch, in fact. So I played bishop to b2, and so a small thing about the Dutch. but Dutch wants the e5 pawn so that he could later push it. So the main thing is the diagonal to his king, the a2 to g8 diagonal is weak. That's pretty much, I think, the only real thing to be said. And he played a6 here. Honestly, at that point, I thought, okay, it's to stop b5 or to play b5 himself. So I just put my rook in the center. Developing it, I was thinking of putting my bishop to f8 in this position because it didn't feel like my bishop was in a good spot. I could put it on f8, possibly play g3, put the bishop on g2. Not necessarily that I thought about those ideas at the time, but I felt my bishop was in the way and I want to protect this pawn. I didn't want to let go of that pawn. In fact, I was thinking if I could somehow put the bishop here on c4, I could have something brewing. But nonetheless, he played b6. The fianchetto is bishop. That's at least what I was thinking at this point. It was pointing to, and I continued with my idea of playing bishop to f1. Nothing really changes. I'm just improving my position. He can't really move his knight. He could move his knight to a7 or b8, open his bishop, but then I would possibly just play d5, blocking the bishop scope, line of sight. So that's what I did. I was saying, okay, move your knight, let's decide what to do. I've got this outpost square. I missed an idea of potentially putting my queen on e2 and putting a lot of pressure on the bishop, but he played knight to b8. So the next move, I understand why I played it. I wanted to put my knight here and fork his rook and queen. I would say it's a good move, but the move I missed in the game, I did think of it like a move or two later, is something like queen to e2. It has that same threat of playing for check. Not sure how strong that check is, but it has that potential. So you could stop that check completely with bishop to c8. But there's a secondary threat of playing queen takes on e7, winning a bishop. He could protect that, of course, with his rook as well. That's ideas. But I didn't think of it at that point, and he decided he's gonna, play this. I don't like this. I don't want to put my knight here just for it to get taken and my pawn takes. I felt that I don't want to take with the rook. Don't think my rook is doing a lot on the square. I also don't think that the pawn being here is necessarily that great. Idea I could have tried was perhaps to play knight to e2, knight c to e2, and then knight to e2 to f4. But I decide, okay, fine, I'm gonna bring my queen to f3, and I wanna try and figure out what the reason was. Yes. So I have enough attackers on the pawn to take it. He decided he's gonna play knight to g4, defending his pawn twice. I decide I'm just going to chase his knight away, and that's when he played bishop knight to e5, attacking my queen and stopping me from seeing his bishop anymore. I played queen e2. Now I'm pinning his knight to his bishop. He played rook f7 so that he could move his knight at some point, and I played f4 saying move your knight now. He did. He went to went to g6, and that's when I decide, okay, I'm gonna plop my knight into this position. I'm attacking his queen, and if he takes, I will take back with the pawn instead, not with my queen. Because if I take with the queen, knight takes, not that grand. But if pawn takes, knight takes, pawn takes rook with check, and then I can move my queen. In fact, that would allow me to win the bishop as well. So I took with my pawn as rook just moved. And at that point, I moved my queen to protect the pawn. Possibly, I could have just moved my knight to d5. The reason I didn't like that was c6. But then I could have taken the bishop. Queen could take, double up on the pawn. And my pawn would still be hanging. He could take with the knight as well in that scenario. I could have perhaps played g3. But okay, so I don't think this is a bad move. He played c5. And this is perhaps a mistake. So I could have used this golden opportunity to play something like queen f3. I could have played knight to d5. Can't, well, push my knight away with a pawn anymore. My knight is now on a really great square, protecting my pawn, protected by a pawn. I've got pressure. I'm going to say this was a mistake, because all it really did was potentially open a file, and the file being the B file. He could have opened the D file, but he'd opened the B file in this scenario, and all it does is give him a route of attack, of counterplay, if you will. So I'm just going to mark this as, I'm going to say this was a mistake. I don't think, okay, it's not showing that it's marked as a mistake. Okay, I don't know what's going on, but I'm just going to say that I think was a mistake. So I'm just going to clear it because it doesn't show up. He took back on a c5 with his people, and I moved my queen to f3, attacking his rook. A better move would have probably been just to move my knight to d5 at that point, or even to play g3 with the idea of playing bishop to g2, freeing up my, well, it would free up my queen immediately from protection of this pawn, and I would be able to put my bishop on a better square. So I played rook a7, I played rook to a to d1, and it's just stopping the pawn moving. I think there was some idea that I had here that I could potentially take. If bishop takes, I've got this fork. Not sure what my idea was, but I had some ideas, and this is what I meant with b takes on c5 being a mistake for me, because this is just allowing counterplay. This complicates the game. I didn't need to do this. I had a pretty good position, and I allowed him back into the game, if you will. Because let's just go back to that point. If I didn't play that and, let's say, played this, if he takes, I would take back, and, well, let's say he takes. I have a wonderful position. Yes, the D file's open, but the A file's open for me. That's pressure that I have. the knight is not going anywhere. It's constantly putting pressure on his bishop. So you can't really leave without weakening. You can't really move the queen or the knight that much. Yeah, I just think this is just a better position. If he moves the queen, for example, I can take the b6 pawn. If the rook ever leaves a8 or the a file, I can possibly take on a6. In fact, in this position, I can actually take on b6. If he doesn't defend, maybe he pushes the pawn. That doesn't do too much for me. I could easily play knight to b6 attacking his rook. Rook moves, knight to d7 hitting his rook. So he can't take with the knight, he can't take with the queen. If he takes with the rook, it's a sack, and I've still got this idea lined up, likely, because the knight is protecting the pawn, the bishop. But I've got an idea, so it's not that egregious. So, and also I'm also hitting that rook, which is just great. So if he does, so both rooks are hit, he's going to lose one at the end of the line. So yeah, that was just a mistake. F3, a7, rook d, so queen to b6. I played bishop to a1. I wanted to stay on this long diagonal because I had ideas of potentially putting a bishop queen battery and attacking that pawn. Again, I think a better move for me would have been, because he played knight c6 and I've decided to play knight to a4. You've heard of the saying before, knights on the rim are grim. But my idea was just simply to attack and have a way of getting into the position. But again, this also attacks the queen. The queen can't really do much in the position. And my knight is just better on the square. Yeah, I could do this. But take, and I'm up a minor piece. So I've got a double pawn structure, but it's not a problem. So again, a4 I think was another mistake. So he played queen to c7. I played at this point the move g3 to protect my pawn. He moved his knight back to d8 from c to d8. Attacking my pawn. My pawn is protected, so I didn't really get the move. I could have potentially tried to go, okay, a move I thought he was going to play is perhaps queen to c6, trying to trade queens. There's a large possibility of that happen that it's good for black, in my opinion. I just decide I'm going to take the b file with my rook, and he brought his queen into a5. Attacking my knight, I decide I'm now going to put my knight on b6, making this a possibility, knight to d7. He played rook a7, b7. I played my knight move. He took on b1. I considered for a moment if I should take his knight on his rook on f8 or not. But the problem was just that if I did that, he will take on e1 as well. And it's not a trade of rooks, it's winning a rook for me. So I just took back, and now he moved his rook. Still, I think this can be considered the better position. Trying to think what could be a move here that just looks great. See, a move like queen a1, queen a8, or rook b8 are both, I think, as moves that I think isn't bad. At the same time, moving my queen to d5 would not be a bad move, I think. Primarily because it is hitting a few squares, one of them being the f5 pawn. And if he ever moves his bishop in this position, I'm also hitting the d6 pawn. I'm also stopping his knight from developing to either of b7 or c6 squares. So I understand why I played b8, because the idea was just simply, if you move this knight, I'm taking the rook with check, I'm happy, and I was trying to go for the kill at this point, tired, not a lot of time on the clock. And he played queen c7. So attacking the knight, but he still can't take the knight, because, the rook, sorry, because it's protected by my knight. It does, however, it doesn't. Interesting position. Not sure what he would have played here. If I just played a move like queen to d5, because it still attacks his pawn. In fact, I could argue that giving the check, knight takes, rook takes, is almost checkmate, but it's not white. So unfortunate, but I decide I'm now going to threaten this checkmate on the spot. I did see that bishop to f6 is a move, but knight takes is a check, pawn takes, queen takes pawn, and I'm still threatening checkmate. So all of that happened, and the checkmate in question here is he still can't take my knight, because taking my knight would lead to checkmate. I can't give the h8 checkmate in this scenario because, yeah, he decided he's going to attack my queen with f8. So perhaps the move I should have played here, because the move I did play was e7, and the idea was, if he takes my queen with his rook, I will take his knight, and I'm making a queen at the end of the line, so I'm just winning a knight, essentially. Perhaps even trading queens at that point, leaving me with a queen, so I would be happy. So basically trading his queen for an trading my rook and queen for his queen and knight. No, my rook for the two, sorry. But I missed the resource where he just takes my pawn. Again, he can't take my rook. If he takes my rook, it's checkmate. I could even play this check specifically, knight takes, queen checkmate. But he played queen takes on e7, and he stops all the ideas. So what I should have perhaps played here, all things considered, there's many captures in the position. Of course, he's threatening my queen, but he's also threatening my rook. So maybe the move could have been a rook takes on d8. He can't take with his rook, and if he takes with his queen, it's checkmate. So if he takes with a rook, but still doesn't work. Very annoying. The reason being, if he takes with a knight, yes, checkmate. But if he takes with a queen, again, I don't have checkmate. So that is also not the move. Trying to think. Queen a8 is a check with knight takes. So I don't know. Queen takes on f8. King takes. I don't see the checkmate. So not necessarily checkmate, but what is the move that doesn't lose? So again, I think a very simple move to protect everything would be probably just knight, this queen to b2, possibly. The reason being that I'm protecting my rook. Of course, he could take, so I don't think that's a good move. F3 has the trap of this being checkmate, but don't think that's a good trap. I think he could take with his knight, rook takes, knight takes, and I still don't have a checkmate. So what would have been the better move? Maybe it is still rook takes. We do know that rook takes is fine, because I still don't have a checkmate. I don't think that's a move either. Trying to think. This move doesn't do much. This is a check, but queen takes, and so what? Ah, I think I get it. Queen takes, bishop takes. And you've got this problem of knight going here. You can't really... you're attacking the rook, so you pretty much have to play this. Pawn goes here. Knight takes... Not sure. I think that might be the idea. So king takes. You don't really want to give up the pawn. But what about a move like this? You can't really protect your pawn. And if you take the pawn, I'm just winning some pawns on the queen side. Not sure, that might not be it either. So maybe it's not that. I'm trying to figure out what the move is. Because it might very well be this. And rook takes. don't think it's it. And I could take the pawn, but I think that's just the losing material position. Materially losing. Again, this pawn is most likely gonna fall. I don't see how you protect it. Of course, taking it leads to check. Difficult to say. So it very well could just be to bring the queen back, because if you take rook takes, doesn't really matter which knight takes. It does matter because if it's this knight, you've got checkmate, or very close to checkmate in the corner. Yikes. You could go to either side, but you're picking up pawns in the process. So could be worth, could be something, but taking like this, I don't know. Could just playing bishop to g2, have this open file. Not sure. Absolutely not sure what the correct play would be. But I think just moving back to b2 is probably the better move instead of e7. So queen takes, and I just take queen. He plays knight takes on e7 now. Even though this is perhaps not the best move, I don't think it's a bad move. It's not a losing move. Material-wise, we're still equal. Pawn-wise, yeah, everything is equal. I've got the bishop pair, which is typically seen as an advantage. And I just decide I'm just going to focus pawns and see what he does. Well, it stops me from taking one of his pawns, so I just take it on a6. He brings his rook, and I made a mistake here. This is definitely a mistake in my eyes. I moved my bishop with the idea of saying, okay, the bishop is going to stop him from infiltrating, but the better move would have been this. It covers every move he can make with his rook pretty much, like putting it here doesn't do anything, and he can't put the rook on any of these squares on the bottom. The bishop move doesn't do anything. So yeah, I decide, okay, well, you're gonna put your rook on e3 attacking my bishop. I'm gonna move my bishop and attack your knight, because the idea is more or less I'm gonna take your knight and then pin it. Happily as it will be, he made that a winning of a knight pretty much. So I played king to f2, which I'm happy with as a move. It kicks a rook out. We move this rook to attack my bishop. Bishop takes knight. Knight takes bishop, and rook attacks knight, pinning it to the king, and he's just losing it. And now I'm winning. Pawn-wise, he has 4 pawns. I've got 4 pawns. His pawn structure is maybe slightly better, but I've got a minor piece, so it's just winning. So, and I've got a passport. So I put my rook on the b file to cut the king off. There is a few things I could have done better here. For example, just move my rook out of the way completely, or anything else. So I just started moving my pawn as well. The idea was, okay, I'm going to protect my rook. Bad move. I could have just moved my rook completely out of the position and he couldn't touch me. And it just a win. But yeah, I walked into this face first. So check, king has to move. And here I had the chance to not lose, well, not get the losing position. And the move is bishop to d5, in my opinion. I was thinking of h1 in the game, but this is just a better improvement on the move because, well, I'm stopping the spawn from moving. It's on an outpost. It protects the spawn, and yeah, he's not getting into the position with his rook. But anyways, me being an idiot, I only saw the threat of what he can do after I made a5. And that is rook takes on g2 check, getting rid of the defender. He takes on b7. And frankly, I am honestly happy and I feel lucky, even though it's not luck because chess is mostly skill, but it's still, I still feel lucky that I managed to draw this game because I managed to have a vastly better position and blow it. Mind you, we were below 10 minutes already at this point, so time was catching up to me. I was tired from playing for over 2 hours at this point, or almost 2 hours. So king takes on b7, and so I knew I had to get my king basically to f5 and try and push my f pawn and make a queen, because he's going to do the same. Now, admittedly, he could have had a better move here. I think somebody said he should have played d5. I would say, yeah, could be, but I don't think what he did was wrong. I'm honestly not very sure why what he did allowed this to be a draw. I did look at this quickly on a computer the other day. I didn't, analyze the game with a computer. I just looked at, the numbers go up and down while making moves, and I saw, wait, uh, somehow when he made this move, it went to 0-0s, where it was winning before, which is honestly scary to think about. But so he queens, I queen, he checks me, look out of the way, and yeah, I did offer a draw at some point, but he didn't want to take it, so I just decided I'm not going to try and find a way to get him to blunder. I'm just going to get rid of the pawns before I trade queens. And this is the end position. But I actually want to take a look at one more thing before we look at what the computer has to say about the game. Specifically this. Why is this move wrong? I think this was this move. Let me actually put the analysis on. As you can see, it's winning for black in this position. And this move equalized it. So according to the engine, black should play d5 instead. And yeah, I go to g6, he goes to d4. It's faster because he doesn't have to move out of the way. I get it. So basically, moving out of the way and going to d5. So move, I move. So what happened in the game is he moved, and I moved. His pawn is 4 squares away, my pawn is 4 squares away. By playing d5, I move my king, and it's already on the 5th square. So he'll even be a move faster than before. Or will he? It's the same speed, so why is there a difference? So I'm wrong on why there's a difference. Why is there a difference? So d3 is a check. King takes on h6. Understandable. King takes on h3 check. G7. Oh, don't tell me it's the simplistic reason that you're picking up all the pawns of white and then saying, okay, let's trade queens immediately. E6, H7. It tries to keep on giving checks, but is there a way to not do that? Because I don't see how there's a capture at some point. Let me see. So somehow it figures out a sequence or position. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I think this is pretty close to a draw. Um, Even though the computer thinks this is winning, I think this is a draw. Um, Practically speaking, for my level, at least. Maybe if we had more time, you'd be able to find the win in this position. But looking at it, it's like 20 moves of check, check, maybe move your king, getting checked as well. But admittedly, in this position, there's very little counter play for white. Black only has to protect himself and he'll win, pretty much. So yeah, but let's take a look at what the computer thought about my game that I played. So, so I had an accuracy of 86.5% and Black had an accuracy of 81.4%. The computer doesn't think either player had a blunder, but it does think that White played at a level of 2000 Elo and Black played at the level of 1900 Elo. So looking at the review part, I want to see where it thinks mistakes were made. It thinks this was a mistake. The reason it gives is it's compromising the king's safety, which is understandable. Um, I want to see where the next mistake was made. As you can see, the computer thinks white is vastly winning. So far, it doesn't think white has made a mistake yet. I just want to see for inaccuracies. Because I think it doesn't say on my side immediately inaccuracies. This is an inaccuracy. It believes I should have developed rook of its starting square, but inaccuracies isn't as bad as mistakes in my opinion. Mistakes is far worse. Inaccuracies can be a problem, but this is not a position when an inaccuracy I think will lose you the game. Maybe if you have multiple inaccuracies in a row, but this was also an inaccuracy apparently. This was an inaccuracy as well. Yeah, I think the better way is. Oh wow! So it thinks knight to do d5 is fine, and what if c3 is played? I just want to see what the computer thinks. You take, queen takes g3. But what about something like rook? I know there's not enough defenders, but oh, and then he has played d3 and say, okay, take bozo. Okay. Anyways, so I played e3, c5. Computer thinks b takes on c5 is a good move still, but I think, yeah, d5 would have just been better, like I thought. So so that wasn't a mistake. This was still a fine move. a7. This was a mistake. The move I should have played here again is d5, but why? What's the moves? So queen, okay, that does not say a lot, unfortunately. I don't think that exactly explains why it's good. I think it's just to, I don't know, but apparently this would have been a better move, and I do agree this would have been a better move because the rook doesn't do much, but the knight is looking at a lot of stuff. It's on an outpost. It's hard to get rid of, so and it's annoying where it is would be. So this was a mistake. This is an inaccuracy. Again, I think it's going to say d5. Yeah, and I also said that would have been the better move. This was a mistake. Inaccuracy, mistake, best move, excellent, inaccuracy. What does it think would be best move here? d5. Again, d5. It always wants to go back to d5. It thinks d5 is just the best square. Okay. And this is the best move. So I made a mistake. What's the best move? Yeah, b2. Can you believe it? It is the best move. And the sequence of moves. Okay, whoa. Okay, so I actually want to look at why um, uh, I want to see why this would have been bad. Because h6 is a move apparently, but e7, no, e7 can't be a thing. Okay, some reason it's not thinking straight. So this is the move. b7. Oh, that's oh my. And you don't necessarily want to trade. So f7 apparently is also a move. Rook f7 is the third move. So what if it was something like this? Oh, king h8. Well, that's disgusting. Okay, so that's why it wouldn't work. Okay, so we were at mistake. So it was still winning or advantage for white. This is a mistake. I know it says this is a good move, but I don't feel it's a good move. It allowed stuff I shouldn't have. So it's just getting winning, and it's just better. And again, like I said, this was beyond stupid. So I know the computer says best move, and I understand why it stops. That's also why I didn't want to move my rook, but the idea was it's stopping the rook from ever coming to the 7th rank, and once my pawn gets to a7, I can play rook to b8 check, knocking the king off the rank file and so forth. But I should have moved my flippin' bishop somewhere. And this, it says is a miss. I think it's closer to a freaking blunder. I'm sorry to say it. It's a blunder. And I do agree this was a brilliant move on my opponent's part. But yeah, this was a mistake, and I can't fault my opponent for this. Because but okay, it's winning if he moves the other pawn, but both of us would have queens on the board. He would So computer line is basically he has this pawn and a queen, and I have a queen. That's it. So he has to get his pawn to the bottom, and we had less than 5 minutes each. So theoretically speaking, if we could have made mistakes in that position, and I would even be willing to wager one of us would have lost on time as well. Um, so otherwise, the computer thinks both of us played excellent moves. I don't think there was ever a point when one of us actually had an advantage at this point. So yeah, sad times for me in a sense, but I like my opponent. We chatted outside, had a great time. And so yeah, but I was quite tired after this game. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope it's long. I'm so sorry for it being this long. I did. I tried to make these videos shorter. But anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful day, or night, or week, and please do subscribe and comment on the video. Please just write a small comment. That would be appreciated. Also, the next two rounds will be out shortly, and my next tournament is happening this weekend, so I will start doing those videos as well when the tournament is over, and I will try and start a new series. But the concept is pretty much I'm going to be playing against a computer as practice games, and I'm going to be going through my thought process and stuff and try and evaluate my own thoughts in the game and see how I can improve them. Anyways, have a nice time, everybody. Cheers. Bye, Hawes.